So a bit more about myself and friends. I wear many hats at Friends of the Forest Preserves, but one of my favorites is event planner for Beer in the Woods. After more than a decade in the wine and beverage industry, it delights me to combine my passions for beer, nature, and community. And now I'm going to share my screen and just briefly talk a bit about Friends of the Forest Preserves, specifically in the Forest Preserves of Cook County in general. So bear with me while I share my screen. So Friends of the Forest Preserves unites people to protect, promote, and care for the forest preserves in Cook County. And we do this because there are 70,000 acres of forest preserves in Cook County. That is a lot of land. It is nearly 11% of the entire county. And we are actually the oldest and largest district of its kind in the entire nation. We're even older than the National Park Service, which was founded in 1916. Forest Preserves of Cook County was founded in 1914. There's also an incredible amount of biodiversity. Cook County is the most ecologically diverse county in Illinois, and the forest preserves in particular have so much diversity. We're talking about many different habitats: woodlands, savannas, wetlands, and prairies, and there are hundreds of species of plants and animals that call these areas home. So those are some of the reasons why we want to care for and protect the forest preserves. Now I'm going to talk about how we do that. We actually have a robust Conservation Corps program. We employ youth and adults, many of whom work year-round doing hands-on restoration work. So they are removing invasive species, they are planting native seeds and native shrubs, and doing all they can to sustain and increase that biodiversity I was speaking of. We also help to organize thousands of volunteers all across the county. So we work very hard to support these people, these volunteers, and help them on their path towards becoming stewards of the land. Another reason why we want to do this, we want to have people engaging with the forest preserves and using the forest preserves. So that is why in our mission, we want to promote the forest preserves. We want you to know that there is so much to do. There are opportunities for education, for relaxation, for finding inspiration, and even some peace. We run dozens of free events all year long. They include biking events, kayak and canoeing events. We even do yoga events. So for those of you who were with us last night, we do yoga in the forest preserves, bird watching, you name it. If you can do it in the forest preserves, we've probably held an event for it. And they're all free. Beer in the Woods is one of only 2 exceptions where it's paid, because this is one of our major fundraisers that we do each year. So that's a little bit about Friends and a little bit about the forest preserves. And now, without further ado, I'm going to kick it back to Matthew and Trevor. Hold on, you know what? Give me one moment. Let me do quick introductions. Got Matthew Moldenhauer, Liquid Mage and Sales Director, and Trevor Rose-Hamblin, Head Brewer and co-founder of Old Irving Brewing Company. You've both been so wonderful to work with these past few months, and I'm very excited for what you have in store with us. So Matthew and Trevor, please take it away.
Hi there. Welcome. We're so excited to be here in support of Friends of the Forest and Cook County Preserve. This is something near and dear to us both, living around here, biking around here, hiking through here. And we just so happen to make some wonderful beer that Trevor has helped bring to the world. And so here we have Trevor, owner, head brewer, master of many different things. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. First and foremost, I just want to talk about the connection with Friends of the Forest Preserve, and then of course our first beer event that happened out there. This is how I actually found out about the North Branch Trail. and I go out often, and I bike the North Branch Trail. I am an active participant, whether I'm getting my steps in or I'm biking on it is a little piece of solace, and was definitely, especially during the depths of quarantine, a very much a piece of a lot of what kept me sane during all that time while things were just so very uncertain. So I just want to say that we have a very big passion here at Old Irving Brewing for what you all do, and we're so excited to be a part of this. So yeah, I'm Trevor Rose-Hamblin. I'm the one of the owners and the head brewer here at Old Irving Brewing Company. As of yesterday, we just celebrated 5 years of existence here in the Old Irving Park neighborhood. Obviously, we're kind of like right on that brink between Old Irving Park and Mayfair. I can literally ride my bike just through a few streets to get up to the North Branch Trail to enjoy all that wonderful wilderness that I always so long for. 5 years, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of craziness, especially in the last year and a half. But we're very proud to say that the local community has supported us and been so amazing to us in so many different ways to make sure that we've been successful, and we've tried to pay that back in kind as much as we can. We have an array of beers that we brew here. I think in this last year, I've probably brewed 40 different styles easily of different offerings at Old Irving, but we do have some mainstays that we're going to be putting in front of you today. 2 of which have now awards with them, and we'll kind of go into that in greater detail as we taste through them. This exciting news came to us about 2 weeks ago for one of them. We also do have a full-on brew pub, wood fire grill. We don't use any gas on that. We try to use local farmers. We try to use local purveyors when we can. Bulldog Bakery right down the road makes all of our pretzels, for example. Mega Yeast Labs, which is just on the other side of the now fixed Montrose Bridge, provides all the yeast for our beers. And of course, we do work with local hop growers, and we try to always sustain those relationships and make sure that everyone is winning in our local community. So thank you so much for having us today. Matthew?
Yeah, I would say one of the big connections I have that I think we both have, I grew up in Wisconsin, Trevor in Michigan, and being part of nature has always been a big part of my life, camping, being out with my father, everything else. And so also recently moving to Portage Park, being able to bike the North Branch Trail and just see the nature that's within Chicago is definitely something that is really unique and special to this area that I'm really grateful for. And being out at LaBaugh Woods last weekend, just seeing everyone and going, can you believe that we get to be in this area surrounded by the forest, especially coming into fall. So one of my favorite things to do is to have beer in the woods and camping, and what better way to share a pint than be with everyone here, and then come out this weekend to share. And there's about 25 other breweries this weekend that you'll be able to get to know and enjoy, and be in one of the most phenomenal places to have and share a pint. So what better way than to start it? With that being said, we'll start our little presentation with what beers we're going to be doing here, starting with Della, then our Oktoberfest, Beezer, which we're most known for, and then Tropical Thoughts, one of our rotating seasonals. Let me get here to share the screen. And we will start. So yeah, Trevor, can you talk a little bit about the brewery itself and what founded it and came from here?
Of course. So we opened our doors in 2016. I originally come from Kitchens here in Chicago. Started off in Michigan in Kitchens when I was just a very young wee person, washing dishes, busting suds. I think I was cooking at some hippie restaurant called Cosmic Garden for like my first job. And then eventually moved out to Chicago to pursue a culinary career, went to Kendall College, and ended up working at this place called Moto Restaurant. Eventually received a Michelin star. I became the general manager there, and then eventually helped my friend Hamaro Cantu run both Moto and Ing. And one day while we're sitting down, he's just like, Trev, you've done pretty much everything in my restaurants. You've been in the kitchen, you washed dishes, you've run dishes, and now you're literally the general manager of my places. What do you want to do? And at the time, there wasn't a lot of brew pubs specifically in Chicago. I think we had maybe 5 or 6, and I just said, I think this is like a very open opportunity. It doesn't seem like there's a ton of brewing happening here right now where you get to serve a pint over the bar of something that you brew. And at that time I was brewing a lot of like fun beers on my off time, which was very minimal. So I was kind of cutting into precious sleep time to brew these kind of weird beers. And I think Omar had one of them, and he was just like, all right, let's do this. And the rest is kind of history. It was like a 7-year project of trial and error and meeting the right person. And you're going to see a picture there with my hand around a guy. That's Jeff Linnemeyer, my business partner. He was next door neighbors of Omar's, and he had kind of this equal passion. He was more of a wine guy, but he loved craft beer. And he was like, tell me what you guys want to do. And we were like, well, we want to be your better than average brew pub with better than average beer and better than average service. It was kind of that simple. We want to do some cutting edge stuff. So we've kind of broken it down into some classic styles, definitely some modern styles, and what I like to call paddle your own canoe, to quote Nick Offerman. So we also have some stuff that's completely off the beaten path, and where we will use a lot of like really fun organic ingredients that maybe most brewers would shy away from because they're a little bit risky. Sadly, Chef Lamaro Cantu did pass away in 2015. We weren't sure if we were going to keep the doors open or not, and we did. It was kind of a war cry of, hey, we've been working on this for a long time. We want to offer our friends legacy, and we also want to keep this project going. Let's do it in a really positive way and turn what could have been a really sad instance into a really positive and beautiful thing. We opened our doors in 2016. Not sure if people would show up. We have some gems around here. We're right off the highway. All the pieces are there. We got our friend's Sidekicks right across the street. But who knows? You never know on that first day. And 700 people through that door that night, and very tired staff later. We were like, okay, this might work. A big part of any chef or any restaurant or any kitchen is always going to be about balance. And I think that the identifying characteristic for us has always been about that. We want to make sure that we're balancing ourselves, make sure that we have balance within our ranks for our staff, especially with the happenings of the last 2 years, and making sure that people are making time and space for the mental energy, and making sure that people are taking care of themselves more now than ever. I think it goes without saying that there's been a lot of trauma for us as a human race, where I think we need that connection to ourselves and also to nature, which is exactly why we're here today. And that balance, we want to make that a common thread all the way through what we do, whether it's cuisine or whether it's beverage or it's our cocktails or it's the contentment of our staff and it's the quality of experience for our guests. We want that all the way through. So you'll find that I hope you find that in the beers that you have this evening. Of course, because I did work for a man named Hamaro Kentu, who ran an avant-garde style restaurant that was all about doing something cutting edge, doing something you haven't done before. It's about being uncomfortable and taking some risks. We continually strive to do that here at Old Irving. We might look like your neighborhood brew pub, but on the inside, creating a culture of creativity and inclusivity is always and always will remain a very important part of what we do here. So while we'll taste these beers, I'll also give you guys a glimpse into some of the fun stuff that we're working on in the near future. So that's Old Irving.
Yeah, which especially talking about the balance, when we get to some of the bigger hazy and especially what I would say is American culture driven beers, whether it's hazies or imperial stouts or IPAs, finding the balance within some of the extremes sometimes is a conundrum, but I think that's especially where it comes true, whether it's the sours or the adjuncts. But yeah, we'll get to our first beer here.
Yeah, also I do want to state that if you're not already drinking your beer, please, if we're talking about beer, you must be drinking beer. You need the first beer in the lowest hole in your face. So
Well, with
that's
that,
it.
and it being Oktoberfest, let's give a little prost.
It's also our 5-year anniversary, so we are celebrating maybe a tad early.
Yes, which we will talk about as well come the end here.
Great.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about both of ourselves here. So without further ado, starting with Della.
Yeah, so that's the one in front of us. Currently, so Della, as you can see, bright, clear, you can see right through it. The most important thing with Kolsch is that you'd be able to read your newspaper right through it, okay? It has to be bright, it has to be clear. Now, Kolsch as a style, a lot of people get this mixed up because there is that cool brand called Grolsch, which everyone goes, oh, you make a Grolsch. It's like, no, the Grolsch is a brand, the Kolsch is a beer. Anyway, Kolsch actually comes from the Cologne region of Germany. And the rule about Kolsch is that you are not allowed to brew Kolsch unless you can see the dome, which is a cathedral within Cologne. It's a very big church. We actually had a picture of it in the brew house for the longest time when I had this German brewer named Andreas here, just so that we could feel good about brewing it. It's kind of the workhorse of OIB. It is the everyday beer. It's 5.2%. It's the one you belly up to the bar. You can have multiple of. It's your socializing beer. It's crisp. It's clean. It's easy. It's your entry level craft beer. When people come in and they go, do you have Bud? Do you have Miller? Do you have this? No, we have Della. And there's a lot of history wrapped up, not only in the name, but in some of the graphics here on the screen as well. Della was actually the name of the founding, the founding father of Old Irving Park. It was his daughter's name. We thought it was such a beautiful name that it should just be emblazoned on at least one of our brands. And the train significance here is basically Old Irving Park, especially down where Cicero meets Milwaukee, the Six Corners there. This was kind of known as like the second downtown, and the transit system was a way for downtown folk to kind of come out to this area to shop and do other things in 40s and 50s. And so this was kind of a bustling area at the time. It's kind of cleared out since then, but it was always known as like kind of the second metropolis to Chicago. And this was because of an area called Grayland Station. And that would kind of be the main spot for people to drop off here. Obviously, we're only maybe 2 blocks away from the Blue Line. We're also right near the Metra. We wanted to tie in some train stuff. Now, I, not wanting to make a corny, cheesy, classic train looking vision, I went for something a little bit spookier, kind of like this ghost train ripping through the Chicago skyline, because we need to modernize the train look a little bit. But I also really love kind of this like very old kind of Victorian style, industrial, maybe like industrial punk looking train kind of coming through. We use this awesome artist. His name is Jason from Ink and Lead Designs. He also does a lot of the Pipeworks albums. Pipeworks labels. Yeah, we're all kind of musicians. And I really love what he does with like light. So you'll see kind of, it almost looks like the lights in the picture are actually bright, the way he does like his shading and things like that. And yeah, that's kind of Della in a nutshell. As complicated as the label is, the beer is so much more simple. It is literally 2 different kinds of malt, a couple of different hops, a very simple yeast, and a very simple brewing process. There's really nothing to it. But because of that, there's nothing really to hide behind. So these types of styles for brewers are maybe something that we would take the most pride in, because this is what we're going to show off to our friends, be like, look how little I did and how not much I screwed up, because I can hide behind a lot of hops. I can hide behind a shade of flavor. But when there's very minute flavors and you're really trying to control just very small pieces, this reminds me of fine dining again, where you're just trying to use as few strokes as possible to get your message across. That's this beer and why it's beautiful. Recently, about 2 weeks ago, Della just won a silver medal at the Great American Beer Festival. So it's also now award winning against how many?
187 other breweries.
187 other breweries.
Oh, congratulations. That's amazing. I do have, so Ruth says this is lovely. It is lovely. June earlier said that she drank many Pilsners in the Czech Republic. I also enjoyed many Pilsner Urquells on draft when I was in the Czech Republic. And I'm just wondering, I see this comment that it was Kolsch was created to combat the popularity of Pilsners coming from Eastern Europe. What's the story back there? Why was there this, why did they need to combat that? And how is it different than a Pilsner? Because to my palate, it does taste very similar. So is there something very distinctly different in how it's made or more in how it tastes?
Both, yes. So specifically, the difference between a Pilsner and a Kolsch will be the fact that one is an ale and one is a lager. That's like the first distinct difference between the two. All beers, no matter what they are, break down into either one of those categories. It's either going to be an ale or it's going to be a lager, unless you're talking about Kolsch. It's like the one exception to the rule. Kolsch specifically is made with an ale yeast. Usually ale yeast strains are going to ferment higher. At higher temperatures, we're going to get more of these kind of fruitier flavors and things like that. Well, what happened with the Kolsch is that they actually took an ale yeast and they fermented it a little bit lower. And so fermentation took much longer. You get cleaner flavors. You get a little bit of that like fruity characteristic. And then they would lager it, which in German means to store. So they would store it just like you would a lager. That's kind of how the Kolsch was born. I don't know if I know a much history about the battle there, but do you know some of the...
I do.
Great.
So some of the history behind it is traditionally Germans before brewing lagers and Kolsches were brewing gruets, and they were brewing these darker red and brown ales. And they needed time, and partially a big part of this is because of the water content that they had. And in Germany, you had a lot more mineral content in the water, which very well known for England, Burton-on-Trent, and Germany. The mineral content really helped build for your darker, maltier beers. And so the Germans were known for some of that richer, darker beers in general. But during the time that Pilsners really started to take off from Pilsen, they had this soft, in the Czech Republic, they had this very soft water that you could have this very clean, crisp, beautiful, easy drinking beer. And it started to rise in popularity and took a lot of sales. And even the Germans were starting to drink more and more Pilsners, and brewers were trying to figure out a way to be able to brew a beer with the contents that they had to actually have something to offer to the people locally. And that's where the Kolsches first started, was basically being a beer to be able to brew something that was light and crisp and easy drinking that could still deal with the mineral content. And that's kind of why you have this hybrid yeast that ferments cool, but is in top fermenting ale yeast that gives a little bit more of a fruity ester, but given time turns into this very crisp, clean, easy drinking, beautiful beer.
Essentially, the Czechs were making crispy, clean beers. The Germans were making dark, rich beers, and people started gravitating towards them crispy cleans. And the Germans were like, we can do that too, but we're going to be innovative and we're going to do it with what we got. And that's how Kolsch was born, the way I understand it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to simplify things. I'm not as smart as Matt, so I have to like really dumb it down for myself.
Yes, thank you for that, both of you.
Yeah, and actually, Trevor can talk a little bit more about this. If you come to the brewery as well, we've just packaged today Till Death, which is Trevor's wedding Pilsner, which is more in line with that aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. Side story real quick. I know we got some time here, so I hope it's okay. Is that cool? Little side story. Okay. I got married here 3 years ago in our beer hall to my wonderful wife, Amanda. She's amazing. And she really loves Pilsner. So we brewed a beer and called it Till Death. And one of my employees, they actually designed the label for us and everything. But that one is 100% Pilsner malt. And it's kind of an interesting thing. Your Kolsch is generally going to be like 99.5% Pilsner malt. I do a little bit of Vienna malt, which is a little bit darker just to give it kind of this golden hue without being too light. You can kind of see it kind of has like this straw kind of color that comes from, you can see my face through there, that kind of that kind of straw look that comes from the Vienna, just a touch of color throughout. Pilsners generally won't have that at all. It'll just be 100% Pilsner malt. It is a lager yeast, it gets lagered, and generally the hop content in terms of like what you would enjoy from Germany generally is amped up on both Kolsch and Pilsner. So you're gonna get the crisp. We call them crispy because you get that bite at the end. So not only are they dry, which means that the fermentation, the yeast comes through and eats all that sugar, so you have a drier product, which is actually better for you because there's less sugar. We also double down and then add bittering hops. Noble hops, classic hops that are native to Germany, are going to add a little bit of this like nice spicy bitterness. Saaz and Tettnanger specifically are going to add this little bit of spiciness. It gives you a little crisp, and it happens kind of on your back palate. You're going to taste it. It kind of pops right at the end. It leaves you wanting for more. This also makes it a fantastic pairing beer for food because it's going to cleanse your palate. It's going to get you ready for the next bite, for the next drink. Makes it more sessionable, which means you're going to drink more, which, you know, makes the brewer more money. Thank you.
Before we go on to the next beer, do we have any more questions, Lana?
No, no questions at the time.
And please, guys, do not hesitate with questions. We love questions. We are ready for your questions.
So next, we will go on to one of my personal favorite styles.
Both of our personal favorites.
And as you can see, it is this beautiful hue. Roast as well. This is our Oktoberfest, which this is another labor of love. And Trevor, if you can kind of expound and tell what the lagering process, this one being a proper lagered beer, what it does over the time, really to the beer itself.
Absolutely. There's all different kinds of fest beer in terms of like color and clarity and everything else. This is called the Märzen. Now, I don't want to be a poser, so this is not a true Märzen. True Märzen, Märzen means March in German, which means we would have had to brew this in March and then stored it until basically Harvest Festival, which would be the Oktoberfest in Germany, which means it would generally happen in late September, early October, and all the way through October. This was to celebrate the harvest when we're going to dig up all of our vegetables and have feasts and party like it's, I don't know, 1859. But I like the maltier, richer style, so I generally go for stylistically what's going to be a Märzen. We use 100% German malt. All the malt comes from Bamberg in Germany from a maltster called Weirmann. Fell in love with this brand. I got to, one of my first brewers here was a German man named Andreas Biller, B-I-L-L-E-R, who is now working with a man named Andreas Miller, M-I-L-L-E-R, who is also from Germany and one town over. So he found his home. So glad for him. And I'm not harsh or anything about that. That's just what happened. And so I think for any like craft brewer, I think, you know, obviously we make the hazy stuff. It's fun for us, but what we really love to drink and what we love to experience are crisp, clean, traditional beers that we can drink a lot of because we kind of drink professionally and all the time. This one is no exception. 5.5%. We use a really beautiful base of Pilsner malt coming from Bamberg, Germany. Munich malts, which if you're going to talk about what malt is in terms of like malt characteristic, like when you think malty, sweetness, richness, all those beautiful things, you're thinking about Munich malt. We also do use a little bit of the Vienna malt. We then lager it. We ferment it very low. I mean, I'm talking like 54 degrees Fahrenheit. All of our ales ferment up 69, 70 degrees. This thing ferments at about 54. When you first ferment lager yeast, you're going to get a lot of this kind of, I don't know how to explain it. It's not good. It's not a very good tasting wort or fermenting beer. It's awful. But over time, everything gets subdued with the slow and low fermentation. That bottom fermenting yeast cleans everything out very nicely. And as you store it, the kind of relationship between malt and hops becomes more intimate. It becomes more round. So then you're left with this kind of balance of like this beautiful biscuit, crackery, malty, a little bit of herbaceousness kind of going back and forth, and then you slip in some carbolic acid from the carbonation, and it makes for this like really beautiful drinking experience where you want to enjoy. I want some food with this. I want to be surrounded by friends. It's warm. It reminds us of fall. It reminds us of, there's a lot of nostalgia for me with this beer. It's kind of the pumpkin beer for brewers, if you will. It's like the pumpkin spice latte for brewers. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, we do have a question from June. So what exactly is malt? She says, I know I know hops are a plant, but can you explain the what?
So I'll explain malt and also kind of give you guys a quick breakdown of like all the ingredients in beer, just so we all know what they are, because that's important. Malt is generally going to be made from barley. When we talk about malted barley, you start with a barley plant. The barley then gets germinated, essentially gets wet, and it starts just to barely grow. It starts to sort of sprout. At that point, the maltster's job, or the person who is in charge of creating the malt, is to stop right there, because when the germination process starts, all these starches become available within that grain that can then be transferred by the brewers into fermentable sugars. Okay, so essentially malt is going to be barley based. In German brewing, you have these German beer purity laws called the Reinheitsgebot. Of course, the Germans are very organized, very kind of linear thinkers. So they're like, yo, this is the way that beer is supposed to be made. You can make it with malt. You can make it with yeast, you can make it with water, and you can make it with hops. And that's it. Eventually amended to include wheat in that and oats, but that was it for the longest time.
And yeast. They didn't know about yeast.
Oh, they didn't know about yeast. Yeah. So, but eventually yeast. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to make one more thing simple in case it's a little bit more complicated. When we're talking about malt, think of fields of grain in the United States. Your corn, your wheat, barley. These are the plants that grow really tall in the fields that you see all over the Midwest and in very large parts of Germany and England and different parts. Kind of like they have the wine line, the grape line in Europe. They actually have the grain line and the hop line.
About like the parallels, like 45th parallel.
Yep.
Okay.
But just so people are familiar, in case they're not familiar with barley itself, just the very tall, thin plants that we're talking about that you can get grain out of.
So those contain starch. The starch, then, when we heat it up in our kettle or in our mash tun, and we're going to show you guys this. I know we're kind of on like our getting close to the last 20 minutes of time, and I want to make sure we leave time for the tour and showing you guys how all this works. But essentially, the starches go in, we heat them up to about 150 degrees in water once we grind them down, and after the whole germination process happened, we've roasted them, we've shocked them into place, and then we mash, and then we'll basically take those starches, convert them into sugars that can then be turned into alcohol. So malt is the base of all of our alcohol, and depending on how you roast, that will give you color. Not roasted malt, roasted malt. Notice the color difference, right? It's kind of like coffee. The more dark you roast it, the more dark your coffee is going to be, right? So that's what kind of gives us a color. In winemaking, that would be the grape skins and kind of the colors of the grape that'll, depending on the maceration and everything else. So that may determine the color of your liquid. The hops, brewer spice cabinet. That's what we use to introduce like different flavors, bitterness, aroma, all that good stuff. Gives it a sense of place. Lets you know where it's from. And then, of course, the water profile can be a little bit faked depending on where you're at, but that'll also give it a sense of place. He was talking about Germany, specifically the German water profile for something like Kolsch. Here at OIB, we've got beautiful water because we are on the Great Lakes. So all of our water comes in from the Great Lakes through these things called cribs. They look like little circus tents out on the water. They suck in the water, gets treated in treatment plants. It comes into us, and then we got to kind of untreat it because we don't want chloramine and stuff in our beer. So we run it through a carbon filter, and then that water is used to brew the beer. From there, we take the base water profile from Chicago, and we adapt it depending on style. If I'm going to brew Kolsch, a long time ago, I wrote a water profile for Cologne to make sure that we add just the right amount of calcium chloride, gypsum, Epsom, all those good things to make sure that we're as close to that area as possible, including its alkalinity, or it's just basically balancing the pH. Finally, yeast is very important, which is why we work with the geniuses down the road at Omega Yeast Labs. They make sure we always are set right with that. But let's move on to the next beer.
Yeah.
We could probably talk about Oktoberfest forever, by the way, because we love it so much, and it's probably the beer that we take back on our own. Also, we are having a little Oktoberfest party, so we got these really attractive steins if you're around.
So to be our own little advertisement right here, this Friday through Sunday, we will be releasing both steins, our half liter and our liter steins. So if you come join Trevor and I for some pints and some full German steins, $20 will get you either stein, and then it's $10 refills on the liter and $5 pours on the half liter of the Oktoberfest and Della.
After or before the festival that you're going to be going to. All right, let's go. Next one. All right, so Beezer, hazy IPAs are a weird thing, because hazy IPA, when it first came out, I was like, first of all, no beer is supposed to be hazy unless it's Hefeweizen from Germany. I was a purist before I knew what it meant, but you can tell by the color in this glass, that is hazy. It looks like orange juice, like pulpy orange juice, extra pulp. That is the style. I wasn't sure how I felt about it. We have an investor who likes to travel the world and bring us all these fun, adventurous beers. He brought me hazy, and I wanted to hate it, and I loved it. It was delicious. It tasted like orange juice, sometimes like pineapple juice, depending. There was a sense of place. I'm a wine guy originally, so I really love like the Southern Hemisphere hops, like New Zealand, Australia. All these hops tasted like New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. It had this like really cool passion fruit, kind of like zippy and fun, but it was round. How do I make this beer? Well, I didn't know. It took me 2 years to figure it out. And the first iterations dropped out clear. My beers kept on clearing up on me. All this time I'm told, like, if it's not clear, you're doing beer wrong. And I couldn't make my beer not clear, even if I tried. And eventually we kind of like slowly, after numerous sleepless nights of trying to figure this thing out, eventually landed on a recipe we're really happy with. When we first had it, it was called Trendy with an I, because if I was going to make a beer, I was going to be kind of a jerk about it. I was like, let's be trendy. Let's be a lemming. Let's jump off the edge of the craft cliff together. Well, I became obsessed. And 10 trendies later, we decided we needed to take a stab at maybe actually making this one of our main brands. Every time I would make a new one, guests would show up, they'd drink us dry, and I'd try a new one. And it didn't matter if it was not perfect or it was a little bit different. I would listen to my guests and they would tell me how they felt. And sometimes they were pretty pumped. Sometimes they hated me. But it was a part of the experience and we wanted to keep on going. Well, there was a wine company on the Northwest side here called Vin Trendy with the same TRENDI. And they gave us full express permission to use that name. I even called the owner myself. Didn't matter. The trademark offices didn't want us to have it. And on top of that, everyone felt like we needed a trademark for every beer name. We don't do that anymore because we put out a ton of beer. So we kind of dropped that as well. But my business partner, he is very organized. He's a beautiful human being. He had a spreadsheet of names. And one of my submissions, I will proudly say, was Beezer. Beezer was an old-timey term I had found for the nose, like 1920s. Like, I'll hit you on the Beezer, see? Like, I'll give you a little punch in your nose. This rang to me because 4 pounds of hops per barrel. Each barrel contains 31 US gallons of hops. This thing is aromatic. When you open it up, you can smell it. It's like grapefruit, orange, passion fruit. It jumps out of the glass at your nose, your Beezer. It's going to come right around there. Obviously, the art doesn't represent a nose. That'd be weird to put a nose on a label. So we just kind of let our graphic artist go wherever he thought he should go, which apparently is an aquanaut with an umbrella underneath the water, doing his thing. So this is our friend Beezer, the Aquanaut. We love the name. It felt like something you hadn't heard before, maybe something that people would remember because it's so unique. And interesting thing about hazies, a lot of brewers, to get that residual sugar, you'll notice that the last 2 beers that you had, the Oktoberfest and Kolsch, quite dry, crispy, right? They kind of finish with like this really nice top note where it's like it cleans out the palate. This one is not that way. It's heavier. It sits on your palate. It's sweeter. it reads like juice. And if you're trying to create juice, the one thing that we all know about juice, because every dietitian in the world will warn you, it has sugar. And there's different ways to get sugar in the brewing process. You can do this in a multitude of ways. A lot of brewers will rely on the old trustable. It's called lactose. Lactose is a milk sugar. A milk sugar, not even yeast will mess with. They won't eat it. They won't digest it. And they won't turn it into alcohol. So what happens? Lactose is left over. It becomes residual sugar. Also, it's milk-based, so it's going to be creamy. It's kind of like cheating, if you ask me. Don't tell other brewers I said that. I think it's kind of cheating. Only if you're using it in a recipe that's not supposed to have lactose in it, because I use lactose all the time. But anyway, I digress. There's other ways to achieve body and sweetness in the brewing process, and this is you mash higher. And when I say mash, I mean we are going to take that 150-degree temperature where we introduce grains, and we're just going to increase it. What happens is all of your sugar strains, they branch off, right? You've got these long sugar strains here. This is your alpha amylase, right? These are ones that are just a little less fermentable. They're going to float around. They're going to become body. They're going to become residual sugar. You have these little tiny short strains, beta amylase. These guys, very fermentable. The yeast is going to come along, going to eat it, going to fart out carbon dioxide, heat, and alcohol, and that's going to become part of the equation. Well, what happens when we do this higher mash is that all those longer strains, they stick around, and that becomes your sweetness. That's your sweetness hanging around. That's your body. That's everything that we can get. Now, I could easily ferment it all out, make it bone dry, and then back sweeten it with lactose, and then you'd get creaminess and you get sweetness, and it'd be a little less sciencey. But we're nerds. We want to figure out how to do it. Where even a German would be like, yeah, this is a Reinheitsgebot. You use grain, you use yeast, you use water, you use hops. This is Reinheitsgebot. They would put us in the same realm as Hefeweizen with a super trendy beer.
Trevor, did I miss how you got it to be hazy? You said trial and error for years. How did you eventually get it to be hazy?
You just want me to give all of my secrets to strangers?
You don't have to.
I'm just kidding. It's super easy. The way the Germans did it was that they used a lot of malted wheat, and they also used a low flocculating yeast. Flocculation means the way that the yeast actually kind of drags down, coagulates, and brings everything to the bottom of your fermenters. We use a yeast strain from our friends. Yeah, exactly. That is high flocculation. That is a perfectly clean beer, right? Nice and clear. This, not so clean, kind of muddy. And it's also about how you hop and how much you hop. It's not one answer. It's about 5 to 6 different answers. It's a balance between chloride and sulfate. It's where you mash at. It's how much malted wheat compared to like flaked pre-gelatinized wheat you use. I mean, it is, to ask me that question, holy crap, it took me 2 years to figure out. And right around the time
to the brewery and we'll sit down and we'll talk about it another time. We've only got 10 minutes, so.
Yeah, I got it. So, do we really? Holy crap, I talk too much. All right, so anyway, a lot of sleepless nights, made a hazy beer. We entered it into the Great American Beer Festival. It won gold in 2019 against.
This one was almost 400. This one was 300 and I want to say 89. No, 343.
347.
347
other entries. So yeah, that was a weird day. We were in the back of the auditorium, didn't expect to win, took my people because they needed a day off. We won, we freaked out. The rest is a blur. The last one we'll go into is called Shower, our Tropical Thoughts. This all starts off from Shower Thoughts, which is something I used to say all the time when I was creating Beezer. I had a shower thought today about Beezer, and this is kind of the journey continued for Hazy IPA. More alcohol, and then we really want to push a tropical piece. I love the tropics. I love tropical drinks. I'm a rum drinker. I like all those vibes. Maybe because I'm so very Scottish and all the places that are the farthest away from the tropics that you could possibly be. This particular one, we use a little bit of wheat and oats in this. So you're going to get a really big, sweet body, even sweeter than the Beezer. This one has Sabro, which is a Neo-Mexicanus hop, which is going to give you a lot of coconut. We have Matawaeka, which is a New Zealand hop, which is going to give you like lemon and lime. Enigma, pineapple. Think pineapple all day. And Citra, that's just going to give you a little bit of grapefruit and orange. The idea here is almost like a pina colada in a lot of ways. just really easy going down. Doesn't drink like an 8.5%. I'm a big sci-fi nerd, so you'll notice the Terminator guy also having a little bit of a surf on top of his coconut drink. And again, a label by our friend Jason at Ink and Light.
I've completely missed that there was a certain dude with the coconut.
That was my idea. I really wanted the dude having a good time. Anyway, before we run out of time, I know we have 10 minutes left. We're going to do a really quick nickel tour, if that's okay.
First, are there any other questions real quick?
So Ruth is just saying that she didn't think she liked hoppy beers, but she really enjoyed the Beezer, and then the Tropical Thoughts feels like a brunch beer. And I would have to agree. These are just so lovely. I love beer and food pairings, wine and food pairings, something I did as a career for many years. And it's just wonderful when you compare these beers to wine and vice versa. I think there's a lot of overlap in how you taste both and how you drink both. So yeah, I would agree. This tastes like a brunch beer.
100%, and that's the juiciness characteristic. I mean, it should kind of taste like a mimosa. And when we think about it, so what is it? It's orange juice, and it's really crappy champagne or a bad prosecco or whatever.
But its mouthfeel is full. It's not like mimosas where it's just like going down. It's like this has a really full mouthfeel. It's very frothy. So I would say it is more similar to, like you said, a pina colada, where it's a little bit fuller.
Well, if you're talking about wine, you talk about malolactic fermentation. You talk about that body you get from Chardonnay. You get all that like roundness. Well, we've achieved that with just like flaked oats, creating this kind of gelatin almost atmosphere in that beer to give you that roundness. We want to emulate juice. Problem with hops is that everyone thinks it's just made for bitterness. It's not. It's flavor. It's aroma. The only reason it's bitter is because you boil it and you isomerize the alpha-linolenic acid inside that hop, and it creates all this bitterness. And forever, it was like an alienating piece. It was like, oh, you don't like IPAs? You must not be a real beer person. It's like, no, I don't like bitter because it meant poison, and I'm a human, and that's how our species stayed alive forever. It doesn't make any sense. So now these new IPAs, like Nouveau IPAs, are casting a wider net and attracting more beer drinkers because it doesn't have to be bitter to be good at all. As a matter of fact, most beers I like aren't bitter. I like really round, beautiful beers, which is why German beer is so damn good.
And still uses hops.
Exactly.
Hops help make sure that it's a preservative, but doesn't necessarily have to be bitter.
Cool.
So Trevor will take you on a little tour here.
You ready? Cool?
I'm ready. Yes,
Okay,
I have another question. So while you're taking us on the tour, think about the answer.
Sure.
You mentioned the shower beer, and I was going to ask you from the beginning, when you were talking about these trendy beers, and just in general the beer market is so expansive, and I've always wondered, like, how do you get your ideas for your next beer? It seems like it's so saturated, and authors get asked all the time, how did you come up with this plot and these characters? And so I feel like with brewers, it's like, how do you come up with the next new beer when there's so many beers out there?
Well, I think in any time that you're dealing with any kind of craft or art, I have this like really awesome teacher. It was actually in like a community college. It was in a music class, and it wasn't like for like fine music or anything. It was just like interpretive music or something. But he had like a really beautiful saying, and it was, nothing comes from nothing. And inspiration can come from everywhere. Obviously, I gained a lot of inspiration from the food side of things. I really believe in balance. I was lucky enough to work with some pretty amazing sommeliers at Moto Restaurant. And those people were trained at Charlie Trotter's, some of like the first fine dining cats in the world. And I got a lot of connections to purveyors who would bring me unique ingredients and unique ideas and fresh ideas. But like, really at the end of the day, everything that you are at this moment in your life is merely a collection of every person or experience you've had up to this point. Nothing comes from nothing. And that's probably why people are attracted to the beverage or the food that you're having right now. It is always nostalgia, and it is very driven by ego. There's something to having the perfect pairing or having that perfect moment that's going to remind you of something else, that is a memory that I think everyone else has probably had in some way, shape, or form. And it's that connection what I think really pulls us together in food and beer and wine and cuisine. It's a connecting piece. It's beauty in all of its ways. So while I try to be unique, I'm inspired by chefs. I'm inspired by Matt. I'm inspired by the lunch I had. Nothing comes from nothing, you know?
It's also a connection to people, which
Yeah.
I was talking to Trevor about one of the first beers that Trevor gave to me before I worked with him earlier today. And to me, beer also connects people. But before we take the full tour, Alana, can you see the brewery behind
Yes,
us?
but can you stop screen sharing? Because we just need to see a bigger screen. Thank you. Yes, that's perfect.
That's it? Okay, cool.
Yep.
Excellent.
Yeah, we can see it. It looks great.
Now I see it. Yeah.
There we
Okay,
go.
cool. All right,
Make
that's
sure
better.
you can see it as well.
Cool. All right. So first and foremost, welcome to the brewery. Behind me here is, well, actually we'll start here, a little bit further down. This is where the beer starts. So you'll just see this metal tank behind me, flat bottomed, goes all the way up, seems kind of like nothing. That's called the hot liquor tank. Hot liquor is a kind of a fancy word for brewer's water. Water is massively important to beer. It cannot be stressed enough that nature plays a key role in how we brew our beer, whether you're talking about yeast, the hops, the malt, but especially the water. The water in Chicago is fantastic, specifically for pales and lagers. You're seeing a lot of metals coming out of Chicago. Yeah, there's a certain amount of stuff that we can do, but we cannot fake good water. The Great Lakes water is awesome. That water has been run through the carbon filter. That's what we're going to use to brew with. Okay, so then that water travels all the way down here to the other side to our mash tun. Okay, that's this piece right here. That is where the grain and the water meet, and we mix it up, and the starches inside those grains, not perfectly clean, turn into those sugars that can then be fermented. Creates a product called wort, W-O-R-T, unfermented beer. That wort then gets run over top of the grain bed in a process called Vorlauf. All these are very German words because Germans kind of created this. Basically turning the grain bed into its own filter. We can look at our wort and see how clear it's getting right here. After about a half hour of that process, we then start shooting that liquid over into our kettle. Okay. In the kettle, you can probably guess what happens there. We boil it. We cook it. We take that liquid, we heat it up to boiling temperatures. This helps blow off kind of certain kinds of volatiles and sterilizes the liquid, of course, so that our yeast has a clean liquid to eat through without trying to fight any other bacteria or yeast. And this is also where you'll add your hops. Now, if you're doing a classic West Coast IPA, one of those like really bitter boys, which I like to indulge in once in a great while, you would add in your hops earlier in the boil, create that bitterness, right? What we do is we add in towards the end of boil. So we boil all of our beers for 90 minutes, blow off a ton of volatiles. We then do a process called whirlpool, which is running the liquid onto itself to create a vortex. And then we'll add in the hops once the wort has come down to a certain temperature. We're not going to make as much bitterness, okay? Very, very light-handed in this way. After whirlpool, after about 20 minutes, then we have to transfer the beer into a cylinder conical fermenter. And you'll see why it's called that in a moment. But first, the beer has to transfer in through the bottom here, through what looks like a radiator. So we'll hyper chill this wort, W-O-R-T, with glycol and water. Out the other side, we'll aerate with a little bit of oxygen. We'll hook up some red hoses right here, and then that'll transfer.
And what is the point of aeration?
The yeast loves air and needs it to multiply. Into the cylindra conical fermenter. So there's your cone, there's a cylinder on top, and that's where the wort goes. That's where we'll meet yeast. Now we can either take yeast that we've already been using, or we get some fresh pitches down the road from our friends at Omega, and fermentation can begin. The way we keep our fermentation, question?
Yeah, two questions. So first of all, will you be making a non-alcoholic beer? And is adding the hops late, is that what dry hopping is?
Correctamundo. That happens in the cylinder conical fermenters. So that's an easier question than the non-alcoholic beer one. For the non-alcoholic beer one, I think, we've thought about it. It is a more involved process. We have a pretty simple system here. Maybe eventually. Right now, we do offer a ton of non-alcoholic cocktails. We have this ginger beer that we make here that's made with actual ginger juice. It's carbonated and it's gorgeous and has a little bit of citric acid and lime. So we have a lot of other offerings. We also do make alcoholic seltzer here in house. So we've thought about it. I've also thought about like CBD, like carbonated drinks and stuff like that. But
which I would say
sorry, Ruth, will what be here on Saturday?
Yeah,
sorry.
Ruth, which one? Oh, non-alcoholic cocktails.
Yes. Well, I think we just ran out of ginger, but we will have other non-alcoholic cocktails available.
Yeah,
On Saturday?
Sometimes the production can kind of be difficult, especially when we're not making enough of everything that we're currently making. So come in the future, when we get more production and we can get more fun toys, bigger size toys of all these things, then we might be able to have more projects that I can throw on his plate.
Ruth, if they ask, say Trevor sent you and you want our best non-alcoholic cocktails, they'll be even better, I promise. But anyway, yeah, he's funny because he's like, maybe when we can make enough of the beers that I have to sell, because he always has to sell my beer and I'm always running out of it, and he's always having to have awkward conversations on my behalf. So sorry, Matt, love you. And then so these are 30 barrel tanks behind me, right? So these are fermenters. The little piece here is called a Renko temperature controller. Okay, it works kind of like an air conditioning unit. I set a temperature, like let's say I want to ferment at like 70 degrees. Hey, sorry, those are my brewers, they're drunk. 70 degrees, and I want to keep it at that exact temperature. I'll set it, and then anytime that it starts to dip kind of above that and read that, it'll run glycol through the shell on the outside of these fermenters until that temperature comes back down. This way you don't get any like off flavors or any like wild flavors that'll happen with that yeast. It becomes more predictable, and then you can make more sustainable product. I'm talking a lot about barrels right now, and I know you probably don't understand that unit of measurement, but each barrel contains 31 US gallons. Okay, so my brew house is 15 barrels. These are 30 barrel tanks, right? So I have to brew twice to fill these up. I usually do it over 2 days. It'll give a chance for the yeast to grow, so we can actually ferment that kind of load. When we walk around to the other side of our brewery,
We are at time, so I'm going to ask you to show us one last thing, and then we'll wrap up. And if anyone has any final questions, please put them in the chat, and I will ask.
Let's walk through. You can see the bigger tanks. That's 4 times, 1 time, 15s. Canning line. That's where we can. And I'll just want to show one very cool thing. All of our beer comes out of serving tanks. So in our walk-in here, just like inside, just like our bright tank over there that carbonates and packages our beer, this is where it's served from. So at the very bottom here, comes out of this tube, comes up here through a panel on the wall, through a chase in the floor, directly up to our taps. So when you drink our beer, you're drinking it out of tanks. That's it. That's your nickel tour.
Yeah, and then in front of the house, just behind us over here, you have all of our wonderful guests and preparing for Oktoberfest and all the grain and everything, preparing for more beer.
Yeah, it's really lovely in there. I've been in there a few times to pick up beer,
Cool.
but I've never eaten there, so I look forward to doing that. And I love how it's open. It's like right into the brewery. Ruth says this was just outstanding. Love the passion for the technical side of brewing and for life in general. She wants to know if there's vegetarian food at your hub.
I'm a recovering vegetarian. So we have tons of vegetarian food. We have gluten-free food. We have vegan food. We, like I said, wide net. We want to make sure all are welcome here. So yes, we have all those things. Cauliflower falafel. That burger is fantastic. We have Impossible. We have all kinds of stuff. Come on in. Vegetarian's easy.
Yeah, we also have a vegetarian brewer as well right now. So we always make sure to have some wonderful food for her. Alana, is there any other questions that we can answer for you tonight? Otherwise, we invite everyone to come join us this weekend and just throughout the year and come say hi to us. Trevor, Matthew, come share a pint with us.
Yeah. No more questions. This has been outstanding. Yes, if anyone does not have tickets on Saturday and is able to join us on Saturday, please do come. We still have tickets available. If you want any more information about Friends of the Forest Preserves, on our homepage, there's a link to Beer in the Woods tickets. So it's FOTFP.org. And yes, visit Old Irving Brewing Company. Thank you guys so much. This has been amazing.
You guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Saturday.
Bye. Good night.
Cheers.